Hello and welcome everybody to AI Security Ops. My name is Joff Thyer. With me I have Brian Fehrman and Derek Banks, my illustrious friends and colleagues. And before we get too far down the track, I'd like to say that this podcast is brought to you by Black Hills Information Security. Derek is wearing the shirt today, which is fabulous. And Black Hills Information Security would be happy to discuss with you your AI security assessment needs. So please give us a call. You can go visit the webpage. There's a contact us link, blackhillsinfosec.com. We'd love to hear from you. So today, what are we going to do? Today, we are going to just totally wing this, okay? Over several episodes of AI Security Ops, we have had many questions. Actually, we're calling ourselves AI Security Operations, aren't we? I keep messing that up.
AI Security Ops.
Yeah.
This is like what do you call it? Like a time-delayed Ask Me Anything.
Yeah. So this is like time has gone by. You have submitted questions. We have taken that list of questions from earlier podcast episodes and we have condensed them into this magical format called a spreadsheet, and we are going to go down that spreadsheet and see if we can answer some of these questions surrounding the topic of AI. So the very first one, let's grab the spreadsheet, everybody. The very first question that I see is, can you post that IBM link? What?
No.
Wrong spreadsheet.
You're on the wrong one. Here. The first one is, what is how do we use AI?
How do we use AI? Okay, that's a great question. Okay. So Derek and I taught a workshop just last week that actually was all about exactly this question. Right? So many of us in cybersecurity, information security consultants are like, hey, this AI thing is really cool. Like, you can prompt this thing with questions and it gives answers, and wow, that's awesome. But then we go the next step, right? And we're like, okay, how do we cross the bridge between this thing's a fancy Google engine to, can I get it to do some sort of useful work for me? Right? And I think that's what this question is really getting at, right? So I think the very first thought I have in response to this question is, you need to think about prompt engineering, right? People talk about prompt engineering as a concept, but I think there's some of us that take it very flippantly. We're like, whatever, I'm creating a prompt. It turns out you shouldn't be flippant about it. Prompt engineering is actually a real thing, and it's a real skill. So that's the beginning of how you start crossing that bridge from AI is just a fancy, like, give me an answer to something tool, to AI can actually do something for me tool. So having said that, I'm going to hand the baton to Derek Banks, expand and expound upon my deep philosophical meaning to all of that.
That answer. I think I agree. Like, when I first heard the term prompt engineering, even though I don't have an engineering degree per se, I have friends who do. And when you use the word engineer, I guess I was closely, associated with enough engineers who scoff at things being called engineering that aren't engineering. Now, that said, I agree that the more I used large language models, the more it became obvious and apparent that the quality of your output is directly proportional to the quality of your input, right? And so I think, to expand upon that, I would look for tasks that would be solved with some kind of pattern recognition. And I guess, what I mean by that is, like, a good example of what we did in the workshop is we took log files and we wrote a prompt, or you wrote a routine to chunk up log files and send them in a creative manner to a large language model that then recognized patterns of behavior in the logs.
Yeah.
And so, I think that if I was looking to solve tasks beyond, it's a chat bot, I can ask it questions, into let me do something that helps me operationally, I would look for things that would require some kind of pattern recognition or comprehension of some kind of text.
Yeah, there's kind of a paradigm to developing a helpful tool with AI LLMs. And I think it kind of goes like this. The first thing is create the prompt in such a way that you can describe how the LLM is supposed to behave, what persona it's going to take on, right? First of all, you are a web application engineer or a web application pen tester, or you are a experienced SOC analyst, or you are an expert cybersecurity consultant. Then set out some goals in that prompt. Like, we need you to do this, this, and this. Okay, and then set out some sort of output formatting instructions. These I would see as sort of the bare minimum, and then take whatever data you're trying to work on and just append it to all of that prompt, and you send that into the LLM, and you get it to process it, and then you digest the output. Now, what happens in that process, as Derek was just getting into, is you pretty soon realize that just using the web interface of some of these frontier models is insufficient for you to actually get the job done in many instances, and you turn to creating some sort of scripting that ends up using the API calls to do this. And it's probably because you have some log data like we just described, or you have some other data, and you need to be able to do that in a more automated fashion and pass it off onto the LLM via API calls. But doing that is not tremendously difficult. And then one of the other things we describe in the workshop is we lean on other AIs to help us write some of those scripts as well. And we've talked about Claude quite a lot as being a really good programmer, especially for one-shot prompting of script snippets that you might need. Now I'm going to bring in Mr. Fehrman. What's your thoughts on how we get across that bridge from, hey, it's a cool little toy, to let's make it do something useful in our own workflow and in our own lives?
Yeah, I think that you nailed it with mentioning about the importance of a good prompt. I mean, it's kind of like when you're trying to communicate with somebody over email or over chat. If you're not careful in how you word things, then people might misunderstand what your intentions are, or what you're really asking of them. And I mean, that's a lot of times why we hop on a phone, right? So we can have that back and forth. But with the LLM, it's almost like you're trying to get it right, up front, and you have to be very explicit in your instructions and exactly what you want. And so you don't leave a whole lot of ambiguity to it, and you're probably going to get better results. In terms of how I use it, it's certainly the kind of the thing you started touching on there with having the LLMs help generate up scripts. I certainly use it a lot for coding. It saves so much time. Just a quick example, we're kind of trying to set up an automated configuration for Open Web UI. And so I just went through, looked at some of the HTTP requests and responses, took those, gave them to an LLM, said, here, generate up a Python script that does this, and boom, it's done. I mean, it saved probably literally hours worth of work. Yeah. And I think it's fantastic for those tasks. It's also great for troubleshooting when you run into issues, either with coding or just computer stuff in general. I like it. It's can just save a ton of time. Just a great task accelerator in general.
Yeah, I think all three of us at Black Hills right now have sort of struck upon this idea, and with a lot of experience and a lot of work together, that if we do some custom scripting, some very, very good prompt engineering, okay, and we combine that together with tooling that addresses specific scenarios and contexts in workflow that we're trying to achieve, we end up with a result that accelerates tasks largely for the workflow of the context in which we're operating. And that tends to be the paradigm we follow. And the tooling and the scripting and stuff can be anything from Python scripting to maybe even some embedded in a product, kind of Golang or something like that. But it's all sort of revolving around leveraging the LLM API in creative ways to help us get some task acceleration of the problem we're trying to solve. And it's very key in all of that to do really good prompt engineering so that the quality of the output rises to the level that you need. I hope that addresses that. That probably more than addresses the question. I will put out a shameful plug here, but forget shameful.
Oh,
we're working
on that one.
We're working very, very hard to give you methodology and actually give you tooling in exactly this area. And Derek and I did quite a lot of that last week. And the three of us are doing a September workshop, in fact, where we're going to give you more of that as well. So this is a little advertisement for an anti-siphon September workshop. It is going to be on artificial intelligence workflow optimization in a red teaming, more offensive kind of context this time around. But yeah.
So I'd like to say that how can we use AI as a question is probably a question that most companies are asking themselves right now. It is a big question here in 2025 going into 2026, right? How can we make this thing work for us?
Yeah, I think the question goes sort of beyond. I mean, that question is too generalized, first of all. I think it really comes down to start refining the question is how can we more effectively use it, right? Not just how can we use it. Everybody's using it. How can we effectively use it and efficiently and with high quality use it in our workflow and our methodology? That's where we're headed. I think we should go to the next question. So what's our next question?
Are we going to randomly select from the list, or are we just going to go down the list?
I think let's do some random selection because that's more fun.
That's probably. I think Brian should pick because I started. Okay.
All right, Mr. Fehrman, pick a question for us.
Yeah, let's look through here. Let's see. This one will be a quick one. So what AI tool is better for what tasks? And then I'm just going to lump this other question in there too, which is which AI brands or technologies will weather the storm and be worth investing time in? So this is something we've spoken about a little bit before on some of our other podcasts. I do agree with the general sentiment that Claude seems a little bit better at coding tasks. One of the things that I really like about it is how it will do like file versioning. And so it's easy to go back to like other versions of the files. If it makes changes and you don't like it, it's easy to click back. Oh, it's so nice. Yeah. You can just click back and like, no, I like this one more. And then maybe copy and paste that one into a new chat to get a fresh context window going. So it's not using all the stuff before. So Claude does seem a little bit better at coding. It doesn't mean that the other ones aren't good though. So, I still have up a Gemini tab. I still have up a Chat GPT tab. And I kind of bounce around between all of them. If one of them's giving me an answer that doesn't seem right, I just go and I use a different one. But I still think that those three in general are still really duking it out at this point. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I would tend to agree. We've leaned on Claude a lot. This is how I approach kind of a new task. Let's say I've got an idea for a new software product. We'll go down that coding route for a minute that I really want to develop. I will do a straw man sort of proof of concept product, and I will use Claude for the straw man. So I will actually do a detailed prompt telling Claude exactly what I want it to produce in the programming language that I want it to produce with the structure and the documentation that I need, and then see how it does. Okay. In different languages, it seems to have different success. So far, in my experience, Claude has been very good at Python, and it has been reasonably good at Golang. But I have not ventured into other programming languages and seen that result. Oh, actually, I have. Sorry, I made a mistake.
How about Java?
Yeah. Claude did not do so well in Java. Now, I am a weird, unusual animal. I think Brian Fehrman's one of the same kind of animals as me, in that I have the ability to program in many, many programming languages, right? So my experience and eyes in terms of being able to interpret the quality of their output across different languages is pretty far up the list there. Okay. So I'll do that. Let's go back to the theme. If it gets it right, and in some cases it does, I've had Claude produce, for example, a Golang project that compiled out of the gate first time and did exactly what I asked it to do.
That's
Amazing.
actually impressive.
It's very really impressive.
Is.
I've had, and I'm talking about multiple source code, multiple module kind of project, right? I've had Claude be very, very successful at individual one-shot Python things. That's fantastic. In terms of my methodology, though, if I like the straw man, if I like the proof of concept that Claude produces, I will take it and I will edit it for quality myself. In other words, I will read the source code end to end. And then I tend to lean back into OpenAI for snippets of helper code as I'm going through that process of refining it, right? So Claude for the original straw man, OpenAI for that sort of little bits of help. So that's a bit of my sort of coding methodology, and I was doing exactly that today because I've unfortunately spent a lot of time with Java lately, and it's been interesting. But I will say that in some of these software projects where I have done that, I have probably achieved up to a 40% task acceleration at least. All right, there's my thoughts. Who wants to go next?
Well, I think I'm the only one who hasn't addressed this. So I'm actually going to take a different stance. I will caveat, I follow a very similar methodology for a project, or if I'm creating a new project, with the caveat that with my initial prompt, I actually wrote a improved prompt, like based on the one that was in Fabric. I kind of just modified it a bit. So I customized improved prompt. And so a lot of times now, if I'm trying to like really start, like I have an idea and it's just an idea, I'll use, Fabric and like the O3 mini, model or, something in Chat GPT to help me refine my prompt. And then I'll take that, add what I want to it, and then go to Claude and like rinse and repeat. I don't really lean back into Chat GPT so much. I do agree. I think that Chat GPT seems really good at writing, prose, blog posts, whatever. Claude seems really good at coding, and then some other things that like we're weird animals because we're like niche in an IT world, right? Well, what about other folks who are out there, or somebody who maybe is a student or something like that? Like, what tools are really good? If you haven't heard of NotebookLM, I think that is a fantastic tool, or for free from Google. You can put up to 50 documents into one workspace, and I think have 50 workspaces, something like that. And you upload these PDFs or documents or course material or whatever, and then you can ask the documents questions through the LLM. So they're like embedding it probably in some kind of RAG database or something. I don't know what's happening behind the scenes, but it seems kind of, like what's happening there. And you can even have it generate a podcast for you where you can listen to it. So for like a study aid, I think NotebookLM is fantastic.
That's a great comment. The other interesting comment that Derek actually just said, which I find that is missing from my methodology, and I probably ought to lean into it more, is the comment of having AI help him improve the prompting for AI, right?
Is it because I'm lazy, or I don't know?
No, I think that's actually really smart approach, right? Because it is all about the prompting. So if you can refine the prompting in terms of the language to be more specific and better for the AI to digest, you will absolutely get a better result from it. And so I don't think there's anything wrong at all with using an AI to help refine your prompting. And it's probably, and here's one of the other aspects about AI LLMs, whether it's prompting or in the initial idea generation process as in general, AI is one of those things that acts as kind of a creative helper to stimulate new thoughts as you're kind of going through that initial concept development. And that's a really nice aspect of AI. And I think in the prompting, it definitely works, right? Because you need to be a little creative and it's going to help you kind of get a little bit more creative, right?
And to the second part of that is like what tools, like what's going to like, you know, like what should you invest your time and effort into? Like what tools, what models or whatever. Oh man, that I don't know who's going to win the AI race at all. I think if I was going to say if there's anything you should invest your time in, it's I would say prompting, like refining prompts to the best of your ability, because that no matter what, that's going to apply to any current large language model, I would think.
Yeah.
And there's so many tools out there. Like, you know, there's one that's really popular that I know a lot of people use, Perplexity. I've never even used it because I haven't had a need to go to some other tool, right? And so there's so many things out there. I mean, so many companies popping up. We are definitely still rock solid in the AI hype phase, I think.
Yeah, still in the hype phase. I think a second to that comment, though, I would say if you are in the space where you need to do things creatively and like break out some scripting, I would secondarily invest some time into learning how to query these LLMs with their APIs in your programming language of choice, because I think that's a very, very useful skill.
Oh yeah, I was actually going to say that too. Is that like, don't discount your own. Like I actually, my soon-to-be freshman in high school thinks AI is stupid and it's making people stupider, and I was like, yeah, well, you know. It's like your opinion, man. But I mean, she has a point where, you know, I think we're seeing studies come out now where people, you know, their brains are changing because of using AI. Well, sure, everything changes your brain, I guess. But I guess I would definitely be working on my own programming skills still to before, you know, I wouldn't completely, because I've found, and I think you've all like experienced the same thing, like it's usually good to get you started, but then you'll run across errors. Like I had to fix one specifically that it could, like Claude couldn't fix for whatever reason. It could not fix this regular expression.
Yeah,
I went and fixed it, which I think you should be proud of me, Joff. But
I am proud of you. But you know, actually, it does bring home a good point. I've had instances with Claude, with OpenAI, with all of them, where I have prompted, I've got a bad result. I have gone back, refined the prompt, I've got a bad result again. I have gone back and refined the prompt again. And probably about the third or fourth try, I'm like, okay, I'm either approaching this problem incorrectly for the LLM to understand, or I'm trying to put a square peg in a round hole, and I need to like back up and just change.
Or you're outputting some sequence of tokens that's making burp. And that's what I think was happening with me, right? Is it was doing something really weird. But I think you should have as a goal, like, especially for the younger folks who might see this, I think you should have as a goal that when it outputs code, you should be able to read that code and understand what's happening, right?
That's actually very important. Never take the output on face value. Understand what you're seeing, right? Yeah. Let's go to another question.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah. That's why I don't think that vibe coding is going to be a full replacement for traditional.
No, it's not.
Understanding
you need
its skill
experience. Yeah, you need experience to look at it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. I think it's ever going to be perfect, but just the difference in the last year, if we have, you know, more like orders of magnitude like that changing, and it gets better and better, which I'm assuming it will, like it'll still minimize stuff, which is even worse, right? Because if you only get one bug every 6 months, like how much practice do you get, you know, actually fixing it?
So, you know, as a pretty experienced developer in multiple languages, there is no doubt that my use of LLMs has accelerated my productivity by at least 30 or 40%.
And I just wonder if we'll fall into like an old COBOL thing, right? Like where people need to relearn COBOL because all the COBOL programmers retired and we still run mainframes. Are we going to get to a point where we're still running these AI things and then no one understands Python anymore because everybody just figured I didn't need to learn it. And so all of us in our 70s are going to be like, you want me to come fix this? Like,
well, you know me, I'm never going to retire. So anyway, and careful with those comments. Like 60's not far away from me. I keep saying that. It's getting closer and closer.
I understand. For me too.
All right, let's. Yeah. Oh, I just gave up my age. No, everybody, you misheard that. I'm 39. I swear to God. Okay, let's go to the next question.
Well, Joff, you get to pick now because I
do.
The first one. Brian got the second one. Now you got the third one, and we're 24
what list am I
minutes in,
supposed to be
so
looking
we
at?
could probably redo this idea again because there's a long list of questions here.
Hang on, I'm looking at the wrong channel.
I'll repaste the link here.
Yes, please. So we're going to find our next question. This is it's a doc. Okay, it's a doc we have here. I'm going to try to open it. All right, so I don't know what question we asked last, but I'm going to do a random pick. So here's I like this question. How do we discuss AI with non-technical audience?
Wow. I've actually done this quite a number of times here recently.
Yeah, that's a toughie, right? But
well, here I'll start. I'll take a step back because I've had a lot of experience trying to explain technical concepts to executive audiences, as you have both too, because that's part of what we do at Black Hills. We take security concepts. We do when we do an engagement and we have like this technical thing, we try and distill it down into something an executive can digest, right? It's still kind of a similar concept, and so what I have found recently for non-technical audiences is trying to use like analogies. I've had a lot of mileage out of explaining how AI works with the data and parameters in, black magic box, data out, or predictions out. And once I start explaining that to folks, it seems to be a little bit better. But I think that the point that I would try and make is that the AI itself is not all the fancy features that make it a chat bot or make it go out to the internet or make it be able to run code. All that stuff is bolted onto it. Really what the AI is, the magic thing, is a black box that's running a complicated algorithm that takes data in and provides the most likelihood output of what you put into it, which is why prompting is so important, right? And so really all it is a collection of matrices is what you see. If you were to dissect that black box, it's just a bunch of data, right? So
yeah, I might lean in a little bit to a high level discussion of the transformer architecture and talk about the idea that that AI, as you see it today in these chatbot implementations, is a very sophisticated algorithmic approach to understand natural language and the sentiment and word relationships in natural language, and then to generate a response to a prompt or text that you provide with that understanding of the sentiment and the context of the text. And then I'd probably go further to say something that I say in the workshop quite a lot is you have to think about a large language model in terms of conversing with a child, and just start talking about that analogy of if you explain what you want from the child very, very carefully, it will literally do, if you like, or generate is the word with generative models, which they all are, the output based on the on the careful instructions that you have given to this naive entity. It is a digital cognitive simulation of reasoning, and it does act in a lot of senses like a child. Brian, thoughts?
Yeah, well, I guess just one thing I would say for people to keep in mind too is that it's not an actual thinking brain. Like, we like to anthropomorphize these
not
things
HAL
sometimes.
9000.
No. I mean, it's not like a sentient living thing. I mean, sure, you can have philosophical discussions on what does it mean to be sentient and, self-aware, all that stuff. But really, it's all it is it's been fed a lot of information, a lot of examples, a lot of data. And when it sees, or when you give it input, it basically just tries to draw correlations from everything that it's seen before and output something that it thinks is relevant to what you're asking it. In the same way that if we go and like read a book and someone asks us a question about it, we can recall some of the information, draw correlations based upon the question that they're asking and what we've seen before. And that's really all it's doing.
Right. So that you're describing how AI is created, like how is it trained and how is it made. So we made it that it would have been helpful if we'd have probably thought through that and had that. Okay, if you're explaining how it's made, that's exactly right, right? If you're explaining how it's used, then yeah, that's data in and data out.
No, so. I think Brian's onto the right thing.
100%. I agree.
It is a difficult question to address, especially if you have as much knowledge as the three of us have about the underpinnings and the algorithms and the math and all the rest of it, to sort of get it to this level where it is just surface to give people kind of a taste, right? And at exec level, typically that's all that they want, right? Just that little bit of
I think it's an important concept
for
people, because I still see it even with testers who talk to us at Black Hills about AI. And they're like, well, if I put data into it, well, can we train it off of that data? And I was like, well, that's not really, you're like, those aren't the right words for what you're talking about, right? We're talking about inference. And so it's just because we've been doing it a lot. It's not because it's just they don't know, right? And so I think that's the most common misconception I see is what Brian said, is it's not this sentient living thing that's learning from all of our prompts, right? So if Chat GPT wanted to train on the data that users are putting into it, for example, then OpenAI has to take those prompts, do some data refining and cleaning on them, and then train a new Chat GPT to then replace the one that's out there now, right? That's kind of like a software development thing. It's not like Brian is saying, it's not this sentient thing that's just taking in data and then taking in data and then learning from it and then just like living and doing that, right?
Yeah, and I think to that point, that both of you are making, I think it's important to clarify the question that's coming from the executive to say, well, maybe first ask a few clarifying questions like, so what have you seen? Are you talking about ChatGPT? Are you talking about a specific product that you've seen? Then I can better answer your question, because certainly most people's exposure, if we make assumptions, has been to chat interfaces on large language frontier models that, we can talk to that. They are generative pre-trained transformers, and we know exactly how they work. But if the context of the question is not that, I think you need to sort of refine the actual context of the question when you're talking to people as well, and say, like, what have you experienced? What are you really curious about, right? Is it your spouse or your sister or your brother that has a particular thing that they've done on ChatGPT, or what is it? What exactly are you trying to get at?
So maybe the too long didn't read version is try and understand AI and large language models the best you possibly can yourself. And as I've found, that is a journey, right? It takes a while. It takes learning, and then my understanding refines, and then try and distill that into things that are a little bit like take a step back, right?
Yeah. Let's pick another question. And this will be our last question because we are getting on in time here. So, all right, so let's make it a good one. I think it's Derek's turn to pick a question.
Let's see here. All right, here, I like this one. How can you do human in the loop?
Yeah, I saw that one. So it's a bit of a general question, first of all.
Well, let's define human in the loop, because I was just at a meeting. So, going back to there's another question on here that we're not going to address now, but it's like, when do we not use AI? Well, I can give you an example of when we don't use AI at Black Hills, and that's we are specifically barred in any kind of report that goes to a customer for using generative AI technologies that goes directly into the report. Yeah. We cannot do that. Like, that is against the rules. You will get in lots of trouble if you're caught doing that kind of stuff, right? And so I was in a meeting and I used that term, well, a human needs to be in the loop. And then we kind of like, the reason I picked it is because we had a debate about it in another meeting, right? And so human in the loop still means I can copy and paste and put that in a report, right? Well, I don't think so. What I think of human in the loop, I think that you're taking the output that the LLM is giving you, and then you're using your best effort level of the domain knowledge of what you're trying to get out of it. Python programming, whatever, security, whatever. You're going to take that and you're going to use it as a starting point to refine your own opinion and description of it.
Right, as opposed to blindly accepting the output and treating that as your, quote, deliverable.
And so that's the output. But this is especially important if you're giving LLMs some kind of like agency, and I'll throw it to Brian for that one.
Yeah, no, so it's, I mean, as you said before, you can kind of think of LLMs in a capacity of almost like an intern or an assistant or, you know, like an entry level type person, right? They're, you know, obviously very capable, could do very good things, but you need to be keeping an eye on them. And it's no different with the LLM. Like, you don't want it just.
I'm not going to let them directly interface with the customer. Give me your stuff first.
Yes, exactly. We'll take a look over this, and if it looks good after some changes, we'll send it on. But the agencies really, that's very, very important. So, you know, you give the LLM the ability to actually take actions that affect things that could be like either on the computer itself within a network system, or like especially with like a physical system. When you're talking about ICS, you probably don't want the LLM to just be the AI to just pop in AI here to just be like flipping switches on and off without any kind of oversight with it. Same thing with making, you know, decisions within a network to just start, say, like isolating users or opening up ports or doing whatever it is, right? It's important when there are decisions being made that could have very critical consequences, especially that a person is reviewing those actions before taking action on it. So you can have the AI gather up all the information ahead of time, kind of package it up, give it to you and be like, hey, based upon these things that I saw, I think that we should probably take this action. And then you as the person can look at that and say, okay, I see what you're doing here. This looks good. This looks good. This looks good. And then make the decision of, okay, let's go forth with that, or no, I don't think that's a good idea. But it's very important still to have that person be the valve on the output, if you will, the final decision maker. Yes,
see, that's
exactly.
Going to be the thing. We're all going to be button pushers, right? AI said do this, I'll push the button.
Yes. Right. I think that the most important aspect of human in the loop is applying your as in you and your own domain expertise and judgment to that result that you're seeing from the AI, which we often treat as essentially our executive assistant, if you like, or our helper, or, you know, task acceleration assistant, whatever you want to call them. But the actual decision to do something based on that information is you, the human, and that's where the human in the loop concept is critically important. Yep. All right. I think we have had a fun discussion on only a few questions, but we'll do this again. We will. So keep your questions coming, and we'll try to keep the fun discussion, of course, in the podcast. And thanks for being here. And I'll say keep on prompting, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye, everybody.